I would go through with you how to choose a monitor. It sounds simpler than it is because you need to think about a few things. Obviously monitors vary from very poor to like amazing. The first thing you need to do is decide how much you're willing to spend. Now, a lot of people, and myself included, won't necessarily want to spend a load of money on a monitor. You've got to understand that there are pretty much three sort of price levels for monitors. There are the real budget monitors, which are around about £100 or around about $200-ish. But then there's the middle of the range, which are about £200 or about $300. And then anything over that, you start getting into real luxury monitors. Now, I have two different monitors here. This one is a Benq, it's a TN panel, and it's 120 Hz refresh rate. Whereas this one here is a Dell Ultra Sharp monitor, which is an IPS panel, but is only a 60 Hz refresh rate. Now, when I set out, the first thing I decided was what resolution I wanted. Now, this one is 1920 by 1200, which is good, and it's not the best, but it's fantastic for a budget monitor, whereas this one is only a 1080p monitor, which is pretty much the standard at the moment, which is absolutely fine, but it's nothing outstanding. And if you are going to buy a monitor, then absolutely no way should you be buying anything less than a 1080p monitor. Those days are well and truly over, and even if you're going to buy a budget monitor, it has to be a 1080p monitor. But to be honest, they pretty much all are these days anyway. So once you've decided how much you want to spend, then the next thing and the real big decision you've got to make is what sort of panel technology you're going to go for. Now, there are three main types. There are others, but the main three are TN. Now, TN panels are the quickest panels to respond. So this means that they will refresh and change the pixels quicker than any other sort of monitor. Now, the downside to the TN panels is that they just aren't as good as the other monitors for colours. And at the end of the day, a monitor is a screen, so you're going to want to have the best quality screen possible. And unfortunately, a TN isn't necessarily going to be a good choice these days. But if you are after a budget monitor, then you're going to pretty much be looking at a TN panel anyway. Now, this one is a TN, but this one is 120 Hz. This one cost me £275. Now, the benefit of 120 Hz monitor is as simple as moving the mouse around, and it's a lot smoother. It's double the refresh rate, it responds to my movements a lot better. Whereas on this one, moving it around, it's not quite as good. But as I have learned by having two, it doesn't make as much difference as I thought it did. Obviously for gaming, I still do play a lot of games on this one just because it's so much better to have 120 Hz for Twitch games like MOBA games or like Call of Duty. I wouldn't play those sorts of games on this one. So if you're after just one gaming monitor and you're just going to game on it, then this one is going to be a good choice for you. So maybe you want a 120 Hz TN panel. But, and I think the one I would recommend to most is this, the IPS panel. Now, there are a few different subtypes of IPS, but this one is an E-IPS, and the E stands for economy because it was a cheaper one. This one cost me £200, so this cost me less than this one, but the picture quality is substantially better than this one here. And the other thing is the viewing angles, and as you can see, this one here for you looks quite yellowy, doesn't it? It looks quite yellowy, but this one looks quite white, and that's because although this one's white for me sitting here, the viewing angles just aren't very good, and so much as moving up and down, the picture does change, which is quite bad. Whereas if I put Microsoft Outlook over here, you can see that it's still nice and white for you, and this Assassin's Creed background is still quite brown for you over there, which is a big downside of the TN, and a big advantage of the IPS, you get the better viewing angles. So this one is probably my favourite budget monitor at the moment. It's the 2412M, and it's got a better resolution and better picture quality than this one. However, and I will say this, there seems to be quite a few problems with this particular monitor, and although it is regarded as the best sort of budget monitor at the moment, I've actually had one break on me after a week. This one seems to be fine, touch wood, at the moment. But I went over to a friend's house, we built a computer for him, and I recommended this monitor, and that one actually died within a day as well. So That's 75%, or no it's not, 66% of the monitors that I've encountered have been dodgy. So whether that's just a dodgy batch, I don't know, but it is a bit worrying that they seem to have this big problem. But as long as you get a hold of a good one, then you're going to be fine, because it's a fantastic monitor. Now there are more expensive IPS monitors out there, and these are going to be real professional. So this one, as I said, is a 1920 by 1200, but there are two other levels of resolution with 4K on the way, hopefully within a few years. One of them is 2560 by 1440, which is 3 times the resolution of a 720p screen. Obviously you're going to need more graphics power to power these anyway, so unless you're spending a load on a graphics card, then it's not necessarily going to be worth it, but you're going to get even better picture quality, and because it's a proper IPS panel rather than an IPS panel, then that means that the picture quality is going to be even better, and the colour accuracy, again, even better. But there's one more. If you really want the top dog, then there are 30-inch monitors out there like a Dell that is 2560 by 1600 resolution, so it keeps the 16:10 aspect ratio like this one, but real professional, real, you know, one of the best you can buy. But that's going to cost you around £1,000, or actually it's about $1,000 as well, so clearly we're not doing so well. But real luxury monitors if you really want a good monitor. But you know, they look well. But if you're willing to spend the money, then you know you're going to get the best. Now the third type of panel is the VA panel. Now these are used in televisions quite often, and the advantage of them is that the colour accuracy is better than a TN. Not quite as good as a good IPS panel, but the VA has really good blacks. So if you want one to watch films on, then a VA panel is going to be the way to go. There is a Dell one at the moment for about £200. It's a 1080p screen, so if you're going to be primarily watching films on it, or just an all-round entertainment PC, then you're going to be after a VA panel. So to summarise, you've got to work out how much you're going to spend. You've got to decide whether you want a budget monitor, you want a mid-of-the-range monitor, or a high-end monitor. And I would definitely recommend that you spend a little bit more and get an IPS panel, because unless you want a 120Hz panel, then a TN is, you know, is naff. It is naff. They are all naff, I'm afraid. This one is naff, but it's got 120Hz refresh rate, which is its redeeming feature, and can do 3D. If you want 3D, then you're going to have to get a TN panel. But if you're going to have one monitor, unless it's literally just going to be used for gaming, I would go with an IPS panel like this one. And if I had to choose one, I would go with this Dell 2412M. I hope this video has helped if you are looking into getting a monitor. If you are looking into getting a good monitor, then consider doing what I've done, which is rather than getting one big monitor, then you can have two monitors, because it's going to cost about the same, and then you get the best of both worlds like I have here, where I've got 120Hz and 160Hz, and you're going to get a bigger screen because you've got two monitors anyway. But it is entirely up to you, and as long as you do your research, then you aren't going to have to worry. Key thing is to do your research, because if you don't do your research, you might end up with something a bit naff. But hopefully if you're watching this video, then that means you are doing your research, and I wish you the best of luck. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you next time.